Welcome back to our channel, where we delve into captivating stories from history and explore the lives of intriguing figures. Today, we have an exciting topic that is sure to grab your attention. We are counting down the top 7 most wicked figures in biblical history, with the last one being the worst ever. These individuals left a lasting impact with their actions, shaping events and challenging the very fabric of morality. But before we begin, I leave you with a thought-provoking question. Have you ever wondered about the villains and antagonists in biblical narratives? The ones who pushed the boundaries of good and evil, leaving a lasting impression on those around them. Can one person's wickedness change the course of history? Stay tuned as we delve deeper into their stories in this video, unraveling the complex motives and consequences that shaped their infamous legacies. Let's get started. Number 7. King Ahab. He was a prominent figure in biblical history, known for his controversial reign and ethical dilemmas. Ahab ruled over the northern kingdom of Israel for approximately 22 years during the 9th century BC, alongside his wife Jezebel. His reign, documented in the books of 1 Kings and Chronicles, is filled with compelling narratives. Ahab ascended to the throne following his father Omri's rule, inheriting a relatively stable kingdom. However, as his reign progressed, Ahab's actions took a questionable turn. The turning point in his reign lies in his marriage to Jezebel, a Phoenician princess, which had far-reaching implications. Jezebel introduced the worship of the god Baal in Israel, a practice that clashed with the principles of Jewish monotheism. Her influence became synonymous with spiritual and moral corruption. One of the most well-known episodes involving Ahab is his clash with the prophet Elijah. Elijah vehemently denounced the worship of Baal and prophesied a drought as a divine judgment upon the land. This led to a dramatic showdown on Mount Carmel, where Elijah challenged the prophets of Baal in a prayer duel, showcasing the power of the God of Israel. Another significant event revolves around a man named Naboth, who owned a vineyard near the royal palace. When Naboth refused to sell his vineyard to Ahab, Jezebel orchestrated a scheme involving false accusations and eventually Naboth's murder to obtain the property. This heinous act incurred a strong divine rebuke upon the royal couple. As Ahab's reign neared its end, he faced a battle against the Syrians that ultimately led to his untimely demise, fulfilling Elijah's prophecies. This battle served as a stark reminder of the consequences that Ahab faced due to his questionable choices and the pervasive corruption that plagued his reign. Number 6. Emperor Herod the Great, who ruled over Judea from 7 BC. Herod's reign was characterized by the construction of magnificent palaces and fortresses, securing his place in architectural history. However, behind this grandeur, he also left behind a dark legacy of tyranny and brutality. During the time of Jesus' birth, the Gospel of Matthew recounts a chilling tale. Herod became aware of the prophecy regarding the birth of a new king of the Jews, which filled him with fear. Motivated by his thirst for power, Herod made a heinous decision, the massacre of the innocents. He ordered the execution of all boys under the age of 2 in Bethlehem and its surrounding regions, aiming to eliminate any threat to his throne posed by this newborn king. This cruel and blood-soaked act resulted in the deaths of countless innocent children. Throughout the centuries, it has stood as a symbol of the inhuman cruelty that can arise from absolute power. However, Herod's plan ultimately failed. Joseph, Mary, and the baby Jesus had already fled to Egypt, guided by divine will. Their escape thwarted Herod's wicked intentions. In the face of Herod's evil, love, divine protection, and the unwavering determination of the Holy Family prevailed. The innocent lives that were lost will forever serve as a reminder that even in the darkest of times, goodness and the divine can overcome. Number 5. The Pharaoh of the Exodus, a central figure in one of the most iconic and powerful biblical stories. The Exodus narrative recounts the arduous struggle of the Israelite people for liberation from Egyptian slavery, with the Pharaoh emerging as a formidable antagonist, characterized by stubbornness and wickedness. It all began when God heard the anguished cries of the Israelites. enduring harsh enslavement in Egypt. He chose Moses, a man raised in the Pharaoh's court, to be the leader of his chosen people. Initially hesitant, Moses eventually embraced this divine mission and confronted the Pharaoh with an unequivocal demand: "Let my people go." However, the Pharaoh, whose name remains undisclosed in the narrative, adamantly refused to heed Moses' plea. His resistance was unwavering and defiant. In response, God unleashed a series of plagues as manifestations of his divine will. Yet, even faced with plagues that transformed water into blood, infested the land with frogs, brought about lice, flies, boils, hail, and darkness, the Pharaoh remained resolute. The conflict between Moses and the Pharaoh reached its climax with the 10th plague, the plague of death. God instructed Moses to announce that at midnight, he would pass through Egypt, and all firstborns would perish. The Israelites received specific instructions on how to protect themselves from this calamity. They were to take an unblemished lamb, sacrifice it, and apply its blood to the doorposts of their houses. When midnight struck, the 10th plague swept through Egypt, claiming the lives of all firstborns, from the Pharaoh's sons to the children of slaves in the prisons. Profoundly shaken by the loss of his own firstborn son, the Pharaoh finally relented. He implored Moses to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, acknowledging the power of God's wrath and the futility of his resistance. Number 4. The remarkable story of Nebuchadnezzar II, another Babylonian king mentioned in the book of Daniel. In his capital city, Babylon, the emperor constructed an enormous statue made entirely of gold. He issued a decree that all inhabitants of his kingdom, regardless of their background, must bow down and worship the statue whenever a specific sound was heard. Those who refused to comply would face the dire consequence of being thrown into a fiery furnace. Among the subjects working in Nebuchadnezzar's government were 3 young Jews named Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Devoted to their God, they remained steadfast and refused to worship the golden statue, as it contradicted their command to worship only the God of Israel. News of their refusal reached the furious king's ears. Summoning the 3 young men to his palace, Nebuchadnezzar offered them a second chance to kneel and worship the statue when the music played. However, they remained resolute in their faith and once again declined the king's demand. Enraged, Nebuchadnezzar ordered the furnace to be heated 7 times hotter than usual, turning it into a seething inferno. The king's soldiers bound Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and threw them into the blazing furnace. The temperature was so extreme that the soldiers themselves perished from the intense heat. However, something extraordinary happened when Nebuchadnezzar looked into the furnace. Instead of seeing 3 figures, he witnessed 4 men walking unharmed amidst the flames. They were untouched by the fire, their clothes unscathed. The 4th figure had a divine appearance, indicating the presence of God with them. Surprised and impressed, Nebuchadnezzar called the 3 young Hebrews out of the furnace. Miraculously, they emerged unharmed, not even carrying the smell of smoke on their garments. Witnessing this, Nebuchadnezzar was astounded by the power of the God whom Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego worshipped. He praised their unwavering faith and issued a decree declaring that their God was the supreme deity. He commanded that no one should speak against their God, under the penalty of punishment. Number 3. Emperor Nebuchadnezzar, a prominent figure who ruled over Babylon in the 6th century BC. He is primarily remembered for his conquest of Jerusalem and the subsequent complete destruction of the holy city. The accounts of his reign can be found in the biblical books of Kings, Jeremiah, and Daniel. Driven by a strong desire to expand his empire, King Nebuchadnezzar besieged Jerusalem and eventually invaded it in 586 BC. This invasion led to the catastrophic destruction of the city, including the looting of Solomon's temple, which held great spiritual and religious significance for the Jewish people. The desecration of their place of worship caused immense distress to the Jews, who witnessed the sacred site being ravaged and plundered. Moreover, the few survivors of this massacre were forcibly deported to Babylon by Nebuchadnezzar, where they were compelled to live in exile. This period of exile, known as the Babylonian exile, lasted for several decades and brought unimaginable suffering and desolation to the Jewish people. Number 2. The remarkable figure of Saul, the first king of Israel chosen by God to lead his people. Initially, Saul appeared to possess the qualities befitting a leader, with his tall and impressive stature. He was chosen by the prophet Samuel, with the approval of the people. At the beginning of his reign, he displayed leadership skills by defending Israel against its enemies and unifying the tribes under his rule. However, as time went on, Saul's attitudes and actions deviated from God's will. One notable transgression occurred when he offered a sacrifice to God in a moment of impatience, directly disobeying the instructions of the prophet Samuel. This act revealed Saul's lack of trust in divine guidance and his desire to act independently from God. Another significant act of disobedience took place during a battle against the Amalekites. God had commanded Saul to completely destroy this people, but he spared King Agag and some of the cattle, disregarding the divine command for total destruction. Envy and jealousy also became defining traits of Saul's reign. When a young shepherd named David emerged as a hero by defeating the giant Goliath, Saul became consumed by jealousy and made multiple attempts to kill him. This exposed Saul's bitterness and his failure to recognize God's purpose for David as the future king of Israel. Furthermore, in times of despair, Saul sought guidance from forbidden sources, such as a sorcerer, which was considered an abomination according to God's law. This demonstrated Saul's lack of faith and dependence on God. Due to his consistent disobedience and lack of genuine repentance, God withdrew his blessing from Saul and rejected him as king. Eventually, Saul found himself surrounded by enemies and was killed in battle. Number 1. Judas Iscariot, one of the 12 apostles chosen by Jesus to accompany him in his earthly ministry. He enjoyed the privilege of being among the closest disciples of the Master, witnessing his teachings and miracles. However, Judas's story took a tragic turn when he betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. This act of betrayal occurred during the Last Supper when Judas secretly conspired with the Jewish religious authorities to hand over Jesus in exchange for payment. This treacherous deed became the catalyst for Jesus' arrest, trial, and subsequent crucifixion. The motive behind Judas's betrayal remains a topic of debate and speculation. Some argue that he was dissatisfied with the direction of Jesus' ministry, while others suggest that his primary motivation was financial greed. Regardless of his reasons, Judas's betrayal is considered one of the most infamous and sorrowful acts in Christian history. Judas identified Jesus to the Roman soldiers with a kiss, leading to the Master's arrest. Overwhelmed by guilt and remorse, Judas attempted to return the 30 pieces of silver, but the authorities rejected his offer. Consumed by his feelings of guilt, he tragically took his own life, leaving behind a sad ending to his betrayal. As we conclude this presentation, let us reflect on the lessons we can learn from these accounts. They serve as cautionary tales, urging us to seek righteousness, embrace faith, and resist the temptations that can lead us astray. We are reminded of the consequences of pride, disobedience, envy, and greed, and the importance of remaining steadfast in our convictions. We hope that these stories have piqued your curiosity and encouraged you to explore the rich narratives found within the Bible. The Scriptures offer a wealth of wisdom, guidance, and inspiration that can shape our lives and help us navigate the complexities of our world. Thank you once again for joining us. If you enjoyed this presentation, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking content. We appreciate your support. Until next time, may you find peace, strength, and wisdom as you journey through the stories of the past and embrace the lessons they teach. Take care, and may God bless you abundantly.